When I was younger, I had terrible acne, spots all over my face. And a friend of mine said to me one time, "Your face is bigger than the spot." And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of true. I can't really argue with that. Now granted, I had quite a lot of spots on my face, but nonetheless, she was correct. And I was more focused on these blemishes than the average person probably was. And if other people were overly focused on the blemishes, wasn't much I could do about it anyway, because it was their life and they could perceive me as they wanted to. If that's what they wanted to focus on, I couldn't stop them from focusing on that. Now let's call failure a metaphorical blemish in your life. On its own, it can be detrimental. You might wake up like I did as a teen, look at yourself in the mirror and think, my goodness, I'm so ugly. We might look at our lives and say, my goodness, this sucks. We are terrible. But ultimately, if you were to zoom out from your failure, then you would notice that the failure is just one teeny little part of the whole puzzle that is your life. I'll give you a concrete example here. A few years ago, I was just back from a stint of traveling and I was trying to get a job somewhere. And I wanted to get a job in, media, content creation, something like that. Spent many months looking for work online, applying to different companies and sending out applications left, right, and center. I didn't hear back from a single person, aside from one person who asked me to do an interview but then ghosted me. That didn't even get to do the interview, they just ghosted me before that. Now you could say that I failed to get a job. I could have looked at that moment, as I did if I'm being totally honest, back then, and thought, man, I suck. Like, I can't do life. How am I ever gonna, survive and be able to live in this world? Everything's so expensive, jobs are so hard to get, and even when you get them, they're not paid very well. Because I failed to get a job, I just said, okay, I'm gonna start my own company. And it took a while, it took a few years to get up and running, but ultimately that failure to get a job has led to me having my own business where I work for myself. I get to do things that I don't think a normal job in a company would have allowed me to do. I'm constantly building equity in my brand. I'm learning way more about life, way more than a job could have taught me, because I have to do basically a gazillion jobs at one as a self-employed person. And I've also been able to help and mentor people along the way based on everything that I've been learning, which ultimately came as a result of that failure. Me sitting here and speaking is because I failed to get a job. I wasn't employable or whatever they say. And at the time it did suck because I didn't have any money. I didn't have any credibility. I didn't have much structure to my life or any kind of hope for the future. But because I put in effort and continued on my path, because that's what this is about. This is about your path. And often we mistake our path for other people's paths, or for the path that society has kind of laid out for the majority of people. And clearly that wasn't my path. That was a path that I was trying to go down, but ultimately I ended up taking a turn. And when I say don't mistake the path for failure, what I'm saying is I was on my path and I failed, but I was still on the path. See, failing on the path is part of the path. And we could almost just remove the word failure altogether and call it an obstacle, or a little side quest on the path of my life. When I look at it like that, it makes a lot more sense as to where I am now. My efforts to get a job was whatever it was, I'm sure I was learning something at the time, maybe that I just didn't want the job. And because I persisted in what was invigorating and exciting for me, I've ended up where I am now, which is, arguably in a much more profitable position than I ever could have been if I'd gotten a job of a similar nature. And I wouldn't have really gone and, expanded my comfort zone like I have here with all of the different things that I do online and the different aspects of my business, be it, the digital products that I have, the mentorship, the content creation that I do for brands, and so much more. And then of course just me being here sharing what I'm learning and what I've learned with the internet. If you're feeling like you have failed, don't see that as a bad thing. It's an inevitable part of your path. And I can't tell you where your path is going. I don't know where my path is going. But I do know that every time that I have failed, it's taught me something, or it's set me up for something else. And if you had given me a job back when I was trying to get a job, and then not given me this, then I would be pretty underwhelmed with that scenario. You know, whatever about the consistency of employment, it's a lot more enjoyable for me to know that things can drastically change in a very positive way any moment because of the power of having a personal brand, or the skill sets that I've cultivated as a result of being a one-man show. I'm an audio engineer, I'm a music producer, I'm a videographer, I'm a creative consultant, director, whatever, because I've had to hone all of these skills and learn all of these things along the way. That just wouldn't have happened in the same degree if I didn't fail in the first place. And I'm still failing all of the time now. And that, again, is just a part of this path that I'm on. It's not that the whole path is a failure. It's just there's an obstacle in the way. There's an opportunity to find a solution. That's what a failure is. It's like, okay, that didn't work. How can I do it in a way that does work? Or how can I do it in a completely different way altogether? For the longest time, I thought I'd become a successful musician, you know, like all of these other artists that I had looked up and aspired to be like. You know, I would see, okay, they did it by this age, they did it by that age, this is what they did to get there, they did this many releases. As I've come to learn, my path isn't going to be like their path. The failure to mimic somebody else's path isn't a sign that I've failed, it's just a sign that I'm on my path. And at the time where, you know, the failure is being perceived, it's really scary, it's really frustrating, it's really daunting. And you might be in a place like that right now. But if you persist past that so-called failure, you will find that there's something there for you that you didn't even anticipate could ever be there. Or maybe the way it comes is in a way that you just hadn't even realized was possible. Things can change faster than they ever could before nowadays with the internet. So the difference between your biggest success and your biggest failure could be half an hour. If you've been posting online for 5 years and nothing's ever taken off, and then one day you post just one particular video that happens to do well, that will change your trajectory. And that doesn't take a long time for it to happen, but it takes a long time to get to the point where it happens. And that's where you need to persist through the failures. I've been on this journey with my music as well for a long time. And yeah, it hasn't worked out the way I thought it was going to work out as a teenager. And I've come in and out of this space. And, you know, we've made progress here and there. And it hasn't worked out like it did for Post Malone or for Taylor Swift or for Justin Bieber or for whoever else. But it's going to work out in whatever way suits me. It's going to work out as it's going to work out because my path hasn't been walked before. I'm the first one on it. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out my music, there's a link in the description to my music YouTube channel. It's separate to this because I understand that not everybody wants to hear music, and simultaneously on the music channel, not everybody wants to hear this stuff. So that's why I separated them. And also you can check out the newsletter down below, one-on-one mentorship down below as well. Also, I've literally never said this before in a video because most people don't care, but if you're here at the very end, you might care. Down in the description, there is a link to a tip jar where you can leave a donation to support me and the work that I'm doing here on the channel. If you've ever found any value in anything I've ever said over the last couple of years, that's a way to, you know, an extra way to show your appreciation. But otherwise, I'm grateful that you're here always, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever it is for you. All right, take care.